No, definitely not. And Noodle will be moving on to the next round to take on the winner of Simplicity versus NC. And we already saw NC earlier in the broadcast take on FTP there, so we have a little bit of an idea of what they will be taking on, or at least bringing to the table. But our next matchup, I believe, will be Choco versus Rusky Nerd, which we've already seen Choco. They took on XD, I'm sorry, they took on Tricks on the broadcast, and we're also going to be doing some more there.
Yes, that's going to be a really awesome one as well. I just can't get over formats like this. I know I've been talking about it a lot, but especially in the educational format, I've seen productivity certainly go up. When you just have an environment like this where it's kind of all inclusive and you can cheer each other on, and just be really supportive. Again, I used to be a teacher. It's not enough to just interact. It's not enough to just do fun things. You have to be supportive. And when we have companies like this, organizations like this, really stepping up to the plate and letting these players know that, yeah, there is a competitive future outside of college, but we can certainly give you that feel and make it start here. And every time I get asked to do these, I'm like, yo, I'm very excited. Very, very excited.
Absolutely.
You never know who's like the next MKLeo in a bracket like this,
You never know. And I wish I had looked up at the graphic right above me, because we'll actually be getting Castelia versus WVU as our next matchup. We have seen Castelia before. I believe they're number 4 on the Upstate New York PR as of sometime this past year. So already seen them take on Seth. Oh, are we going NC versus Simplicity? All right. So I was originally correct. I was right. We're seeing NC versus Simplicity. Okay. So I mean, Castelia was also another player that was popping off with D earlier, taking out one of the favorites in this bracket. And then, we saw NC versus FTP earlier, representing ASU. And then we have Simplicity jumping in for WVU Tech this next matchup.
Yeah, that King DDD gameplay earlier was just absolutely wild. I was trying to scarf down some quick lunch and then kind of listening to earshot too. And I'm like, what is all this DDD I'm hearing? And I turn on a stream and I'm like, oh, it's Seth. And I was like, oh, this DDD is actually going absolutely ham right now. Okay, I'm sold.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing more NC there. Bowser Jr. was pretty nice. I mean, that's again a character, even almost like WVUIT trainer, that you don't see very often unless you're playing in like a certain region. And Bowser Jr. is certainly one of them. But Simplicity running the Diddy Kong, the first one we're seeing so far. I feel like if there's any character that can deal with Bowser Jr., this is certainly one of them.
Yes, Bowser Jr. just not blessed with the best frame data in the world. Obviously has some meaty hits, has some tricks up those sleeves, but I think the fact of the matter remains the same, that Diddy Kong is just going to outbutton a lot of characters in this game. Yeah. And unfortunately, Bowser Jr. and all his siblings happen to be those.
Absolutely. And of course, if you're a Diddy Kong player, you also know how to deal very often with other players' projectiles, right? So if you got to pick up the Mecha Koopa, a player who's using Diddy is probably likely going to know what to do with that. And of course, if they're not already holding a banana, which you can see just waiting for NC to press the button, and they're going to capitalize off that trick.
That's right. I guess the same could certainly be said for the other way around as well, too. I mean, I would imagine a Bowser Jr., especially if this portion of bracket, would know how to deal with banana fill. I mean, again, kind of like what we talked about in the last game with WVUIT, you just pick up certain characters and you just have to know that there's going to be some matchups that are going to be difficult. Namely, this one right here. Love that back throw at the ledge. A strong start. Let's see if it turns into a stronger finish.
That's the IQ HQ right there. The roll behind back throw at the ledge since the Smash 4 days right there. That's a Long Island classic.
These silver babies don't know anything about that.
They don't even know about that, man. They don't even know about that.
They don't know, but so we are in an educational format, so of course class is always in session, and I got to say, NC is definitely getting taken to school right here. This is not a strong start right here in this game, but it is an understandable start. Again, this is Diddy Kong. Again, these buttons are just ridiculous at times. I mean, the immediate back throw off the ledge there in that game, or in the first stock, obviously looking to repeat history, gets the monkey flip with the kick. Now we're microspacing.
Yeah, he was crawling backwards right there. I mean, NC now at a full stock disadvantage. That should kill. Yeah, there we go. So we'll be get the full rapid jab, but now I'm still at full high percent here. I should be able to, I mean, honestly, another little bit of a hit here and another back throw might be able to kill, though. To be fair, Simplicity doesn't have any kind of rage to work with.
No, absolutely not. So it's going to be anything but simple here. Still keeping the positional advantage. I love the ledge play. Good one jab right there, just stopping that momentum. A good temperature checker, just stopping the party before it even gets started.
Yep, gonna have to be careful because even then, like the monkey flip is still gonna be a very volatile tool. You're gonna be seeing Simplicity use that a lot, especially trying to capitalize off the banana, but just as a way to mix things up in the air. And so far, NC having a little bit of trouble getting back to the stage and dealing with that. The Mecha Koopa is not gonna be enough to keep Simplicity at bay, and certainly not after the confirmance of that up smash and get another kill for them.
That's right. Again, we talked about the positional advantage there just a couple exchanges ago, and I just have to keep zeroing in on it. You know, Simplicity and just pinning you down in that corner is really their MO, and it is working so well. Okay, we abandoned shift. We got to get the heck out of there. We got Diddy Kong coming at us.
Oh, and that Koopa cart, you're really not seeing that used very often, and that's a solid approach tech or approach option in many other matchups, but Diddy's just too fast. I can immediately, you know, deal with that, immediately get out of dodge, just jump out of the way, and of course, again, that monkey flip will get over and hit Bowser Jr. in the head and not collide with the cart, so you gotta be careful for that one.
You definitely have to be as safe as possible, and I think this match is just starting to kind of unravel a little bit here for NC, for lack of better terms. You know, I think when you get into a situation like this, it's best to try to pinpoint. If I can't find my opponent's weakness, you know, of course, this is best of five, so we have a lot of time to work with. I think it's in your best interest to maybe try to figure out where this character struggles at, just in terms of just matchup competitive nature, whatever. Like, try to get like Diddy Kong off stage. Again, you know, Bowser Jr., very large hitboxes. You tap Diddy Kong once out there, he's probably in some trouble. Or maybe, you know, force Diddy Kong to have to go for some trades. I mean, Diddy Kong is a character that has a lot of kill options, but some of those ones at later percent still need a setup before they can find that final blow. And I think for Bowser Jr., it's like, hey, hold this F smash, hold this rapid jab, hold this up smash. You know, like, let's see a little bit of that play into effect.
Yeah, it's definitely easier said than done for sure because Bowser Jr. can't reliably like whiff punish Diddy as you know opposed to other characters. Harder to bait Diddy to do things, and it's hard for Bowser Jr. to get in. So I'm thinking almost maybe just try to play a lot more of a passive and campier zoning kind of play style because when you try to jump in on Diddy Kong, that forward air, that banana are always going to be waiting for you. And if Diddy whiffs, they're able to really just kind of reset the situation a lot quicker than Bowser Jr. can. So, and you really have to pick and choose your battles. Diddy doesn't really necessarily have to do that as much.
Yeah, Diddy Kong can kind of just come and go as they please. I will certainly give you that. It is certainly easier said than done. You know, I do think that there are some options, of course, that Bowser Jr. has. We just, unfortunately, have to just dig a little bit deeper. No disrespect to the Diddy Kongs out there. I'm not saying that y'all aren't digging deep either, but I mean, this is Bowser Jr. we're talking about. Let's keep it a stack.
Wondering maybe if we'll get the character change here potentially from NC. A little bit of, I believe they might have another character in their pool they could potentially work with. I think they might use a little bit of Pokemon Trainer as well, but remains to be seen if that will come into play. But the Bowser Jr. might not be working. Pokemon Trainer would certainly, I think, have a better chance against dealing with Diddy than Bowser Jr. does. But it also comes down to, I think, comfort, what you've been playing. From what I looked up, it didn't seem like NC had as much time on like a PT versus Bowser Jr. So we'll see if they kind of dip into that character pool, if it's even there. Meanwhile, I mean, Simplicity certainly feeling good after that one. No need to make any kind of changes. Likely just kind of wondering, okay, do I avoid going to like FD or am I okay with going to FD and just playing a different play style?
Yeah, I certainly agree. Pokemon Trainer, of course, just literally any of the three in the combination is probably a much better fit on paper, like looking at it statistically, than Bowser Jr. However, comfortability, like you said, does play into effect. And as we can see here, it's kind of played into an effect in a big way. We're back here on Bowser Jr. once more. However, if you're just tuning in, friends, this is best of five, so there is an opportunity for a character switch on both sides if this one does not work out here for both players. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I was going to say, if not FD, then Town and City was kind of the natural pick here. But Diddy still, I think, excels on this stage. You know, you have so many ways to mix up your recovery and landing on stage thanks to the platform. The monkey flip just works great in conjunction with these platforms when they're around. But when they leave, you got to really be worrying about Bowser Jr. kind of zoning you out a little bit. And those Mecha Koopas are going to do some damage over time. Again, Simplicity hit 2 times in a row as they're trying to get some shots in. Even the banana clipping them in the back of the head, back and to the left. And now they're looking for some schmicks. Oh, even hitting them with the rocket barrels. They're going for a second one. Oh, so nice they hit it twice. And now it's evenly tied up.
Sometimes you can just do things like that, especially in an online format. I mean, both sides are already a little uncomfortable, then boom. Diddy Kong's doing things that we don't really get to see Diddy Kong do very often. That element of surprise goes a big way but so do Bowser Jr. conversions. Now, again, this
Uh-oh.
graphic that should be enough to do it at the ledge. Yes, Mike Tyson punch-out style. But I got to say this, man. When you play a character like Bowser Jr., you can't afford to miss any of your follow-ups. I love the Mecha Koopa, just the manageability. But when that stuff explodes on Diddy Kong, find that follow-up and as quickly as possible.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, again, the Koopa cart losing to the monkey flip I was talking about earlier, and that's immediate. We also see NC kind of looking for some more committal options despite having the lead there, like immediately going for down air, which is just easily avoidable. You got to be careful and not just necessarily mashing out those more committal options just because you have the lead. You still want to keep things, nice and tight.
Yeah, definitely got to keep the neutral air tight for sure. And as you can see here, this matchup starting to, maybe spiral just a little bit out of control right here. Oh, a little bit, a lot of bit. That is going to do it right there on that spot. NC looking so powerful right now. Here we were thinking that the platforms were actually going to come out and, kind of help, Simplicity and a lot of these interactions. If anything, it's just adding an extra layer of mix up here for NC.
Yeah, that second stock, blink and you missed it, right? Like, that was like too quick to really even kind of call right there. And now NC with a full stock lead, and I love that, using that explosion to kind of bait out and respond to the monkey flip they anticipated. Oh, that forward smash almost even landing there, not gonna poke past the ledge. And now it's going to be a bunch of bananas and Mecha Koopas being thrown out as Simplicity, trying to make sure they can contend with those projectiles as NC gets back onto the stage, which they did. And now just both swinging here, nothing landing at all. A nice forward air out the outside.
That's right, back throw at the top of that platform. Out to the blast zone they go. Not enough to get it done. And again, just the precision here from NC has been on the money.
Wow.
Here. That smash should be enough to close it out. Game 2. Going to NC.
That was it looked like we were watching two different players, almost. Yeah. Like, that was just a completely different kind of series there. I mean, that was almost the first up smash we saw, and I like that too because, Bowser Jr., of course, has a bunch of multi-hits you have to respect, especially if you're landing or trying to cross up, and that conditioning of, all right, I'm not going to use any of those multi-hits until it's very necessary, that's just textbook 101 smash right there.
Yeah, we've seen shades of them wanting to use their longer lasting multi-hit boxes. I believe you called it out. There's an F smash at the ledge. Love that option there. Of course, if you can catch Diddy Kong monkey flipping and they don't snap right away, or hell, even as they're coming up, you might be able to catch them right up underneath the ledge, but was a little off the mark, but I felt like they're starting to think correctly now, and boom, up smash shuts it down. Just some players just come alive in game 2. Game 1 is always the download game. I just need to see how my opponent moves, how they're going to operate. I know the character. I don't know the player. Game 2 is boom, download complete. Now I'll see you in game 5, So let's see how this one unwraps for the next one.
We'll see. I mean, this is what we want to see. These series kind of go in the distance. I mean, hey, a 3-0 is entertaining for at least one party involved, right. But, us here on the mics, we want to see those game 5s. We want to see these players trade and going back and forth. And, of course, we're still up in the upper bracket, right? So these players have already proved they can get here, but we got the cream of the crop rising to the top.
That's right. Cream is always going to rise, man. This has just been certainly a treat to watch. Again, we're also seeing characters that just don't really get to see very often. I mean, the Diddy Kongs are still kind of out there in the world. I mean, I know Tweak's kind of playing the character, but also just kind of not playing the game in general right now. A couple other players are still rocking them, like Aaron as well. But it's just nice to see that this character is still, met with some great competitive viability. Same with Bowser Jr. I think we've seen a lot of this character, I believe, in Let's Make Big Moves just a couple weekends ago. So, yep. Bowser Jr. mains, I mean, if you're out there in the world, in the chat, in the Discord, wherever you're at, this character, might be here for the long time. We'll see.
Someone who hates fighting against Bowser Jr.? I hope not. I hope not. Oh my god, that's a 0-2 right. No way! No way!
Turning Diddy Kong into quick roadkill right there. Great stuff as we kick off this match. NC again, it's just feeling like game 2 was that download game. This game right here is looking like download complete, but we'll see. I don't want to call it too early because Simplicity did not come all this way this season just to be stopped here with some relative ease. So, oh my goodness, we'll see.
Oh my god, if that explosion landed too, this might be two quick ones right here. Oh, it's falling into the forward smash, no way. And this, honestly, this stage pick is interesting because Bowser Jr., as we've seen, can shark through those middle platforms very easily with up air. And Diddy can do the same thing, but NC looks very comfortable on this stage.
Yeah, this is certainly home sweet home. I mean, and I'm not
Oh,
surprised either. I mean, this is a very traditional layout. Of course, just the tri-plat survivability here. Too. Bowser Jr. is not the lightest character in the world. Certainly have a little bit of weight to him, and so because of that, they just live a little longer here. But that back air, of course, taking the lives of many, and unfortunately enough, Diddy Kong just being another name on that hit list. Great stuff right here for NC.
NC's precision with that back air is, I have to say, pretty high, right? Like, when it's thrown out, it's landing almost every single time. That down air, not so much, but I think it's more so like a, keep this in the back of your head. Like, you don't want to get hit by this down air. You better make sure you're worrying about it, and that's how NC kind of makes sure that Simplicity is not working about other moves in their disposal.
Oh, no doubt about that, man. That's smash gonna be enough. No red stuff there attributed to it, but you know what though, we will still certainly take it. Simplicity, of course, has a lot of ground to make up here. And it kind of goes back to what I talked about in game one. I mean, I love just how Simplicity was able to just smother NC and all those interactions. Again, just being able to out-button Bowser Jr. But Diddy Kong has a very glaring weakness, and of course, it's the off-stage gameplay. Particularly speaking about when they're trying to come back to the stage. And I just feel like Bowser Jr. has the hitbox. We've seen it with that back here a few times. Man, how the heck do you trip a cart?
They don't have the four-wheel drive. I think that's what it is, right? They don't have the power steering. They don't got those winter tires. It's January, man. They gotta have the chains in the tires, something like that.
There it is. Those tires just not with a lot of tread on them, I guess.
No. Rolled into the shop just completely flat, no ridges whatsoever.
There it is.
Here comes another Mecha Koopa again. NC gonna have to try to capitalize off that a little bit. It's gonna almost lands that forward smash. What might not have killed, but certainly would have led to some more damage. As Simplicity tries to get back on stage.
Yeah, and Simplicity just a little off the mark there for what looked to be the start of something great at that top platform. Get the throw, of course, meet him at that top platform, wait for the air dodge, and then possibly go for another throw or an up smash. But at this percent, I'm sure he'll take just about anything.
Oh, the Mecha Koopa implodes, and they confirm off that with the back air. That is something I don't think Simplicity was anticipating whatsoever, even if they could even do anything in response. And just the small nature of that stage was so hard to avoid the cannonballs, to avoid the explosions off the Koopa Blast, to avoid the Mecha Koopas. It was almost too much to handle.
Yeah, Diddy Kong is a character that just gets a lot off of their mobility. On top of already having an item that they can play with, and then of course great buttons and frame data. I really feel like it's the ability to move around is what really, puts Diddy Kong sometimes in a tier list, really in their own. But I think looking at NC in that match, just use pretty much their entire toolkit to just pin Diddy Kong down and try to keep the match grounded, try to keep the match, in slightly closer quarter combat. And, just because of that, NC was able just to shut it down. Simplicity, of course, showed a lot of promise there in a few of those interactions, was able to find an up smash KO, but the fact remains the same. A Diddy Kong that cannot move around freely is a Diddy Kong that's going to be in some trouble, and NC just wasn't having any of it in that game.
Yeah, that lockdown from NC really just made it difficult for Simplicity to kind of find confirms, get that banana in position. Of course, you also have, the middle platforms to deal with when you're using banana pull. So now you have to make sure, okay, it's actually landing somewhere where I can retrieve it and not actually have it work against me. So I'm interested to see, will we get any kind of character change? Will we get, potentially a different stage here? Might go back to PS2, who knows? But this is looking really solid and a really even matchup between these two players, which of course, always love to see that.
Oh, yeah. Always love to see a nail biter for sure. Again, 3-0s, like you talked about, are only really fun for one half of the match. I guess they're fun also for production, depending on the environment, because they get to go home a little bit earlier and sleep. As production, they're the real heroes. But no, all jokes aside,
there it is.
We have the character switch here, and it is Pokemon trainer. So we are going to see right here if Simplicity can be the very best, like no one ever was.
Yeah, so I was actually anticipating potentially at one point in the series for NC to switch to PT, but I did not realize that Simplicity has a pocket PT as well, which is certainly not a bad pocket character to have. Of course, you can change up that matchup at any time, but Squirtle's a character that has some mix and can keep up. And then, of course, you can throw to Ivysaur to play that similar projectile game. Still, though, that said, despite the options at Simplicity's disposal, NC still has the lead.
NC has a lead, but we will see for how much longer because as we
Uh-oh.
have seen here, it has been Ivy Store time ever since Let's Make Big Moves with Quid. This
Yep.
character is just a very powerful. Again, another situation where we,
Oh,
oh my God,
oh
forgot
my
about this character
God.
beginning of the meta, and then they come back, but you know what though? Ivy Store is no longer with us. We're at the Pokemon Center. It's Squirtle that's back into his thing.
Yeah, that's like making me think of that theory where like Nurse Joy doesn't actually heal your Pokemon and just like gets rid of them, throws them in like a furnace and gives you a whole new one. Maybe that's what Simplicity needs, just a whole new pick right here, a whole new Pokemon to make it happen.
I would hope not, man. I mean, if anybody's ever played the Pokemon games, Ivy stores and starters are very hard to come by. In fact, so hard that you only get one. So if that's where the rest of them are hiding, then they need to come up off them, man. Because I would like some more starters in my possession.
And this is still difficult here for Simplicity. Ivysaur has a little bit of range, but Bowser Jr. can contend around the same kind of poking range here off of that Ivysaur back throw and our back air. And then you have Charizard, who has such a huge hurt box, is going to get hit by these projectiles, who might get hit by these multi-hits here. You have, of course, the kill confirms off throws that are available thanks to Charizard and Ivysaur, but you want to be careful because you might get set up, you might get absolutely pulverized, and that was a 3-1 lead here for NC.
This is just ridiculous. But you know what, though? I felt like if you can deal with Diddy Kong on stages like Town and City and Battlefield, then you can deal with Diddy Kong anywhere. And I feel like it wasn't, no matter how this match wraps up, it was in Simplicity's best interest, to switch over to another character. I still feel like Pokemon Trainer shows a lot of promise, but this match is starting to spin more out of control. It's, of course, NC just knows his character inside and out, and it's looking really good here for him.
Yeah, this is away. There we go. Finally gets that confirmed that they were looking for, but still a lot of work that needs to get done here for Simplicity to stay alive in the upper bracket. And Ivysaur has, of course, those projectiles, can play that zone, but doesn't have the speed and is a little bit chunky, can get hit pretty easily by Bowser Jr. I'm actually almost surprised we're not seeing a bit more Squirtle here. That back air lids again, and that is it. NC will take that game 2-0 and will take the series 3-1 to move on farther through this bracket.
Wow, what a phenomenal finish right there. Just one of those scenarios where like game one starts away and you're just like, okay, I don't want to be this guy. And really lean into the age-old trope. If anything can happen, don't judge it off of game one. But when you see Diddy Kong and Bowser Jr., you just can't help but to be like, it's Diddy Kong versus Bowser Jr. However, NC, though, wanted to rewrite the script, waited till game number 2 to really try to analyze their opponent. Simplicity, of course, played very strong, but NC, it's a little stronger.
Yeah, NC looking really, really, I mean, honestly, just following up on the series we saw previously, I'm not entirely surprised, right? Like, NC it took a little bit of time to download, right? But with Bowser Jr., I think that's understandable. And then once you finally find that groove, I mean, you're forcing a Diddy Kong to switch characters, you're doing something right for sure. So I wouldn't be surprised if we could see NC going all the way here, not only with, the mastery of their character, but using a character that most players, I would assume, really aren't familiar with.
Yeah, there's still a lot of just unfamiliar terrain. I feel like with Pokemon Trainer, maybe not because we don't know the character, but just because the character can be played in so many different types of ways. You can get an aggressive Ivysaur, a slow Squirtle, and whatever charge. Like you can play the character in so many different type of innovative ways. But also with Bowser Jr. as well too. I mean, there's Bowser Jr. mains out there that are very strong. There's not very many, and then the ones that do show up sometimes at tournaments, they don't even get to play on stream. So again, the fact that we have a format like this that is able to put somebody like NC, into the limelight, I think is just a really good thing to see.
Absolutely. And of course, we have a lot in the limelight here. There's a lot on the line as well as $2,000 worth of prize money. And of course, we're going to be seeing a little bit of that action we just saw thanks to some replays here. Let's take a look what we got. So yeah, this thing started out, I would say, pretty even. That download hadn't come out just yet. And we saw Simplicity took that opportunity to start off strong.
That's right. And then, there's that rapid jab at the ledge, not to be trifled with Bowser Jr. Once you get caught in that, you can pretty much know that your fate is sealed. Here we are, next game, and the end of that next game as well. We talked about it once, I'll kind of bring it back up again. Bowser Jr. and those multi-hit smash attacks, namely F smash and up smash. When spaced correctly, when timed correctly, they could be your opponent's worst nightmare. We've seen that come out there most certainly.
Absolutely. This is where things really shifted, right? That Battlefield game was so quick. You could really tell that NC had finally figured things out against the Diddy Kong. Of course, it even forced the character change. But Battlefield was a stage I thought might have been a bit more even, and I was absolutely wrong. The Pokemon Trainer does finally come out, but that first stock really kind of allowed NC to run away with things. They got such a quick kill that eventually they could trade and trade and trade and keep that lead going in their favor.